The Arizona Wildcats are heading into the Big 12 with a new head coach, being Brennan, coming over from San Jose State after the departure of Coach Fisch. We're heading out to Tucson, Arizona to give you an insight as to how the Arizona Wildcats are looking to get to the Big 12 Championship game after a very promising season ending the Pac-12. I'm Nathan Johnston, here with my co-host Brad Hopkins. It's time to break the huddle. Brad, a lot of turnovers going on in Tucson right now. The whole coaching staff has changed. A lot of roster management to sort through. Let's jump right into this. We know that Coach Jedd Fisch obviously leaving Arizona to go be the new head coach at Washington. We're excited to talk about the Washington program here in the next few weeks. But for now, let's talk about the new man in town, the new sheriff in town for the Arizona Wildcats, being Brennan, coming over from San Jose State. It looks like he's brought in a couple of his own players, and it looks like a couple of players that we expected to transfer out after the departure of Coach Fisch have decided to stay. Brad, give us your take on the Arizona Wildcats heading into the 2024 season and also joining the Big 12. This is a big move for the Wildcats program.
Yeah, Nate, absolutely. You hit on a couple things. Nate, we talked about Arizona a lot late last year because they just ended up being one of the most fun and entertaining teams to watch, and a team that really kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, look, this team finished third in the Pac-12 last year, and they were just so competitive. Jedd Fisch was just an unbelievable coach to me. I know Arizona is feeling lost, but Washington got a good one there. Nate, Arizona is so intriguing to me. A new head coaching change, as you mentioned, Brennan, and Nate, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Well, mixed results for me on this hire, and I realize, Arizona is not the most attractive job, but it's in a good regional position for recruiting. So, I have, some mixed feelings about Brennan. His best year at San Jose State was, of course, the very, very weird 2020 COVID season. He's for the past 2 years was a 7-win team, but 34-48 overall as a head coach. So interesting that I don't, like I said, don't know quite how to take it. However, his coordinator hires I thought were really, really good. He brings in an offensive coordinator, Dino, of course, who was let go at Syracuse last year, but this is a guy, he runs a high-powered, fun offense that they're going to be, 4 and 5 wide receivers. I think he will do a good job there in Arizona, especially with two playmakers that I'll get to in just a second. And then Duane, Akina, defensive coordinator. And Nate, this is a guy that is just really, he knows how to coach defense, especially his defensive backs. He was at Texas for a while, has been at Stanford, has been at Arizona. He's coached some good ones. His list of guys that he has coached is long and illustrious. At Texas, Michael Huff comes to mind, Aaron Ross. So he's got a good pedigree. And Nate, you mentioned another thing, Arizona going to the Big 12. Look, with Texas and Oklahoma departing, the Big 12's wide open. We don't know. I mean, I don't know what to think of it. So even though Arizona lost a lot of guys and they're going through a coach change, Nate, I feel like Arizona could easily win the Big 12, possibly. Who knows? Real quick before I hand over to you, two names. And if you're an Arizona fan, you know this. Their quarterback, Noah Fifita, who is just so exciting. This kid is electric. He had a fantastic freshman campaign, and I think the fact that he did not go to Washington, the fact that they were able to keep him, I think is a really, really big deal. And then I apologize, going to mess up this name, but Tatarior McMillan, their big wide receiver, him come back to Nate. This is one of the best quarterback wide receiver combos in college football. And like I said, even with the coaching change and everything, it still makes Arizona very, very dangerous. So, Nate, this Wildcats team is intriguing to me. I think they have a chance to be really, really good, but who is Brent Brennan as a head coach? That's a big question mark to me. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring, high-powered offense there in Tucson at the very least this year.
Yeah, Brad, this is one of those programs when you look around the nation that has, to me, one of the biggest question marks being Brent Brennan. My initial reaction was this Wildcats program is going back down the drain. We saw how Jedd Fisch had been able to build it up so well. And to me, I'll make a couple of hot takes. Number one, I worry that Coach Fisch had stars in his eyes and sand in his pocket. Um, I think being able to be in a position where, obviously the Pac-12 was disintegrating, and Jedd Fisch saw the opportunity to go to Washington, a high-powered program that had just been in the playoff. To me, if Coach Fisch stays at Arizona and continues to build what he was building, especially with NIL, especially with going to the Big 12, I really do believe, Brad, they had a shot to be a top 5 team in the nation. Now, what I mean by that is a top 5 playoff team, not a top 5 ranked team, but they had the opportunity to do something special in Arizona and Tucson. And I think they still do. They keep their star quarterback, Noah Fifita, who was a huge part of that dynamic season, the dynamic offense they had last season. They bring back a few other guys like Jonah Coleman transfer out. That's very disappointing for the Wildcats. But look, they bring in a lot of great players as well. They bring in Quali Conley from San Jose State, a running back. He's did pretty well there. They bring in a couple other guys from San Jose State. One guy that I kind of want to key in on is safety Jack Luttrell, heading over from Tennessee. This is a very underrated safety. He was a 3-star coming out of high school out of Colquitt County in Georgia. Everyone knows Colquitt County. If you know high school football, it's one of the biggest breeding grounds for successful football players around the nation. That's a guy to look out for. Look out for Jack Luttrell. And then a guy like Jordan Shaw, cornerback from Indiana. That's a big pickup, in my opinion, as well. 5'11", 150 on the smaller side, but very, very quick. It's a toss-up for me, Brad. I can't tell you what this program is going to be capable of. One thing I will say is when you look at a guy like Brennan, he was at a very, very small program where NIL is probably non-existent, where he doesn't have the ability to bring in top recruits, and the bottom recruits he does have are probably local in the California area, maybe a couple guys outside of California. But for the most part, I don't want to call them scraps on the table because that's very disrespectful to a program like San Jose State, who has had some success in the past. But let's be honest and let's call a spade, Brad. He didn't have the best situation at San Jose State. This is his opportunity, his big moment to prove himself at 50 years old, to take that next jump, to go to the Arizona Wildcats, into the Big 12 Conference, and a conference where, like you mentioned, Texas and Oklahoma leave. A lot of question marks for that conference. We talked about Baylor Bears with Dave Aranda being on the hot seat. We talked about a couple other programs, and we're going to get into more about the Big 12 as the offseason continues. But for now, Brad, I'm going to leave it at this. I think the Arizona Wildcats have a good shot in the Big 12, but it ultimately is going to be up to what that offense can produce. Can they replicate what they had last year? And again, just like we mentioned earlier about the Missouri Tigers, I think it's unfair to put the Arizona Wildcats in a position where you look at them and say, oh, yeah, they can do what they did last year, because doing something like that is very hard to do year in and year out. We're used to it with programs like Georgia and Ohio State and all these other guys. But at the end of the day, Brad, it's hard to win in college football. It's hard to win year after year when you have so much roster turnover. And now with all the NIL stuff, it gets even crazier. So looking forward to seeing what the Wildcats can produce this year. I'm going to be optimistic and say that they build on the success, not necessarily win total, but I think they're going to have a good shot at the end of the year being a name in the hat to pick for the Big 12 Championship contenders. Let us know in the comments who you think will be the best transfer at Arizona, and give us your thoughts on Brennan as a head coach. And if you're an Arizona fan, give us a follow and let us know what you think heading into the 2024 season.